Today we are talking about the gender and number of nouns. So, coming from English, some of this makes sense. All nouns are going to either be masculine or feminine and either singular or plural. So, singular or plural, we'll start with that because that's something that we already do in English. If you have one pen, that's pen, but if we have several, then we need to make it plural and turn it into pens. So 1 pen, 2 pens, 23 pens. So in English, we usually add s or es to the end of a noun to make it plural. So that's what we mean when we say number, singular or plural. Now, masculine or feminine, that is what we mean when we say gender. Now, we do this with people. You know, we have the pronoun he and she, but we don't do this in English with objects. In Spanish, all nouns, that includes things, are going to either be masculine or feminine. So, for example, the day is a masculine word. The afternoon and the evening are both feminine words. If you look outside and you look at the sky is masculine. The stars and the moon are feminine, but the sun is masculine. So this is an odd thing for us coming from English. And the thing is, there's nothing about the object itself that will tell you whether it's masculine or feminine. But there is something about the word that will typically clue you in on whether it's masculine or feminine. So let's go ahead and look into this idea of gender and masculine and feminine. So basically, if a word ends in O, bolígrafo, diccionario, hermano, then you can assume and be right most of the time, assuming that that is masculine. Now, feminine endings, there are a lot more of those. If something ends in a, ta, dad, or either of those spellings of sion, then you can assume that it's feminine, and you'll be right most of the time. So, ventana is an example of a feminine word, libertad, mansión, those are all feminine words. Now, just like any good language, there are always exceptions here, and definitely too many to list in a little video. But these are the words that you'll see in this chapter. So start there, one thing at a time. So clima, dia, sofá, poema, mapa, tema, those all end in A's, but they're actually masculine. And then mano and photo, those end in O's, so they look masculine, but they're actually feminine. So now you may be wondering, okay, why does this even matter? What's the point? Well, understanding this is going to keep you from sounding like a toddler. And that's, one of the things that we want to do. It's good to be able to communicate. That's always your first step. But then moving past some of these simple grammar mistakes that people make is just going to make you sound like you're your actual age. So now looking at photo though, let's look back at that. Usually there's not really any rhyme or reason as to why a word is an exception. Photo though is actually, it does mean photo, like photograph, but that is actually short for fotografía. So if you knew the full word there, it actually does end in an A. So that makes sense. But for the most part, it's not going to make really any sense in your mind. But again, going back to why this matters and not sounding like a toddler. Basically, if you look at your vocabulary list, and by the way, let's look at that. To get to your vocabulary list in Voces, if you will click on the table of contents, open up chapter 2 and go to Lista de Vocabulario. That is your vocabulary list, and that will take you right here. So, if you will look at these words, they have el or la. I also see las in here, and those are something called definite articles. Indefinite articles, you'll be hearing more about that in this chapter, but basically they are the words for the. So the thing is, if you have a word that is masculine, so it ends in O, then you need to use the masculine word for the, which is el, or if it's plural, you need the masculine plural word los. So anytime you see el on your vocabulary list, then you know this is a masculine word. So if you say la cuaderno, then you're still going to be able to be understood, but again, you kind of sound like a toddler there, so something definitely to work on. So those are the masculine words for thee. And then you also have two feminine words for thee. And the feminine words are la and las. So when you see la, then you know it's feminine. Las is feminine. That just clues you in on some things. And later on, we're going to realize that nouns being masculine or feminine actually changes up a lot of things in a sentence. So that's very important to go ahead and start understanding. Now, you do for sure want to be really careful with some of these. For example, el aula, it ends in an A, but it's got that L in there, so it's actually masculine. What else? El sacapuntas, that ends in an AS. So that's a little bit odd for us. La pared, it ends in a D. And the thing is, if you'll just memorize la pared, say it a bunch of times and it will stick in your mind. La pared, la pared, la pared. El pared won't even sound right. So anytime you come across one that doesn't have those typical endings, then just specifically spend some time. Say those words out loud. Make some flashcards if that's something that helps you. And you just specifically need to work on memorizing those. So absolutely spend some time with this list of exceptions here. Anything that you see is not obvious from that list of endings, spend some time on those. So that's masculine and feminine, and just keep practicing that. It will begin making sense as you get into some practice here. So now let's look at the number of nouns. So number is singular or plural, and again, we do this in English, 1 pen, 2 pens. So to make a noun plural in Spanish, if the word ends in a vowel, that's A, E, I, O, or U. So if the word ends in a vowel, we're just going to add S. So if we look at this word bolígrafo, O is a vowel. So to make it plural, it's just bolígrafos. Just add an S there. The second rule, if it ends in a consonant, then we are going to add ES. So D is a consonant. So to make that from wall to walls, add ES, paredes. So you've added an extra syllable there. And now it's plural. Now there is one special consonant, the letter Z. If a word ends in Z, in Spanish we just do not like ZE for some reason. We don't like it. So anytime that would happen, we're going to change the Z to a C and then add ES. So change that Z to C and then add our ES there because that is a consonant. Now there is one exception in this chapter, and it's the word sacapuntas. So sacapuntas it's pencil sharpener. You can have one sacapuntas, un sacapuntas, or you can have 12 sacapuntas. So that word just doesn't change. I guess sacapuntas is just too many syllables, but sacapuntas is not a word. So that's the one exception in this chapter for making things plural that doesn't follow the typical rule. However, I do want to point out it's not just because it ends in an S already. The word for month is mes. To say months, S is still a consonant, so you still add ES. So it's not that it already ends in an S for sacapuntas. It's just an exception, and languages love exceptions.